Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome back to Post-Pandemic Back to Social Talks. I'm glad to be with these beautiful ladies and talking today about communication and cultural intelligence.
Good afternoon.
Happy you.
Yes.
We have Go, Maria, go.
I am happy to be here today and to have today so we have a very special guest that you're going to introduce, and I've invited a lot of people to join us with a lot of questions about the topic of today.
Yes, and we're really, really excited today because it's the first time we have a guest.
Yes.
Yay!
Yeah!
And our special guest, 𝗖cie𝗺𝗺𝗶𝗰. He's the founder of 𝗖cie𝗺𝗺𝗵 Global and the developer of Global Disk, and the author of Uncommon Sense and Usual Times book, which we are going to talk today about. And here we are. Welcome, Csaba.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Lovely to see you. Anyone is worried, anxious?
Why would you ask something like that?
All good then.
So should I start with the first question, or do you want to introduce a little bit more yourself, or?
Yeah, start.
Which is the drink of your choice that you brought today? I'm on water today.
We started with peppermint tea.
Very classy.
I have ginger beer.
And I've got fresh water. In a titanium cup, like a real man.
So maybe I have the first question, because I saw when I started to read the book at the beginning of this year that the book was published in March 2020. So it was just the beginning of the pandemic. And what I wonder was what was so unusual in the pre-pandemic time? So what led you to write such a book?
What is usual? Because sometimes this is my question, that sometimes people want to go back to the normal because it was so predictable, but was it? It's almost just the illusion of certainty that you thought it was so predictable, but I don't think it was. I think we had that illusion, and when something happened, then we had to realize that's not true at all. But the problem is that if you start digging a well when you are thirsty, it's too late. So the smart people get ready and they level up gradually. And I think that's the plan. Because sometimes we have this feeling that everything is fine. Let's stay in the comfort zone. It's going to be all right. Nah, I don't think so. There's a problem with that.
So had the pandemic brought us usual times?
No, I think the pandemic is a wake-up call. And I think a lot of people manage to reevaluate what's important. Because maybe in the beginning they found that, oh, people are so annoying, I don't want to talk to them. Now they are craving, they want it, they appreciate, they realize what's important. Going to work, now I don't like it. Now maybe you miss it. Or maybe you realize that it was the wrong job because you had time to reflect. But when you're busy every day and you're just reacting, then it's difficult to zoom out and see what you really want to do. And by the time you wake up, then 10 years went past.
Mm. That's interesting, because that is something that we talked the other Sundays, that the pandemic has meant for many, many people reprioritization. So how to put priorities in their right place now. So do you agree with that?
Definitely, it's because evolution happens under pressure. And I think we had a fair share of that recently. And we had to think about what is important and what is not. And how many people gave up on their dreams because, you know what, I've got a secure job. I have to play it safe. And now there's no job, no dream. Fantastic option. So that's why I talk about the illusion of certainty, because let's be honest, certainty doesn't exist in nature. If something doesn't grow or contribute, then it gets taken out. We came up with this concept. We crave it and we pretend it's real. But when something happens, we realize that, it's a really fragile place. If you really want to feel safe, then you have to be more, to do more. That's real safety, not staying in a comfort zone.
But do you have the feeling that the value of certainty is something which is different from culture to culture? Because, for example, in Germany, to have a secure job to think to have a secure job was always a value when you think of our authorities and so on. So to have something insecure, to think, to have something insecurity, to plan and so on. So this was really something, I guess, important for us in Germany. Do you think this is really something different from culture to culture, because this is a different value from culture to culture?
I think it depends on what you have. It depends on your personal preference, and it depends on your environment. So when we talk about culture, we talk about the environment, what people are used to. But culture is not who you are, it's what you are used to. There's a big difference there. Yeah. Because even in Germany, there are a lot of people who want a lot of variety. And they are suffocated when they're told by certainty, rules and regulations. That's normal, but that's not natural to them. And there's a big mindset gap. And lots of people are like that. So I think it depends on that. But it's easier to be an entrepreneur if you have a safety net. You know, for example, like in Denmark or Germany, life is relatively safe. You have that kind of certainty because of the environment. But maybe in the US or Eastern Europe, not so much. You can lose it anytime. So of course, people need to be more careful, and they got used to it. And I still remember my parents when they told me, oh, don't do this, because it's going to go wrong. Don't do that, it's going to go wrong. And I can still hear it. I mean, imagine if I had listened to them, but I can still hear the voices. Culture is about conditioning. They teach you what is normal. So we cannot really ignore it, but that's not who we are.
So you said that by leaving the comfort zone is how we are developing, which I understand. What I'm wondering now is, like, by leaving the comfort zone, we learn new skills or strategies that help us in different situations that were like not included in our comfort zone. So do we feel more secure because we are more capable somehow, or because what it was unusual belongs suddenly to our comfort zone? Or is that a security because our comfort zone is bigger, or what would you say?
I think real confidence is not when you know all the answers, but you know whatever happens, you can deal with it. So the more skills you have, the more confident you become. So to me, that's what it means. Because you cannot know everything, but if you have the right attitude, you know that you are persistent, you know that you have growth mindset, and you know that you are willing to take the work, then I think it's pretty safe. It can go wrong, but if something is rigid, it breaks. And that's why we have to focus on flexibility. But that's not normal. The brain is not designed that. We are wired to stay in the comfort zone, and we are wired to hang out with people who are similar to us, so we can run on autopilot. That's how we can save energy. So it's not normal to tell people, get out of your comfort zone. It's going to be so good for you. It's like, go against nature. That's what we are saying. Unless you know what's the benefit of doing it, and also what is the cost of not doing it. So my idea is that I would rather walk today so I don't have to run tomorrow. Because the problem is that if you stay in your comfort zone, you try to protect something, status quo, whatever that is. But the world is changing. The world doesn't really care about your preferences. The world is changing quite rapidly, let's be honest. So the gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you get to that breaking point, and then you have no option. And you have to do it, but that's going to be painful. So would it make more sense to level up gradually, every day, just a little bit, or at least regularly, to double check your best practices? Are they still serving you, or they might be hurting you? Because maybe that time it was a great idea, but the world changed. It's almost like a paradox, because you try to keep and protect the status quo, but at the end of the day, you're endangering the very thing that you try to protect. That's how I see it.
Okay, Ivan asked something that you just said, that so we should ask what we are doing and ask ourselves if that is helping us get farther. And Ivan sent me a question saying, do you have techniques or skills, or how can we make more aware which is our common sense that is like putting us limits, or so how do we notice that we are limited, or yeah.
I think you notice it when something triggers you. And that's a sign that you are not free there. Something is wrong. But that only happens if you do something, if you are exposed to something new. Because, for example, my mom is allergic to bees, but she didn't know until she got stung by a bee. So, you don't know until you're exposed to something. So that's the unknown area of her identity. And that's why it makes sense to test it sometimes. And when you have friends who really trigger you, the people who really know you, that's a pretty good sign that, yes, you can grow there.
Mm.
This is the questions from Ivan. Is it a mistake to believe in a comfort zone?
No, I don't think so. Comfort zone is good. I mean, we have to be there. But the question is, how big is that? And also, how much time you spend there. If that's the only place, or sometimes you have a bit of holiday and you get out of it, just to push the boundaries a little bit. Because when you feel that discomfort, that means that you are pushing the boundaries, you are growing.
But I think it's really difficult to do that by yourself, because we get used to our surroundings, to what we do, and to actually have that intention to push ourselves from the comfort zone. I think it's really difficult. We're always waiting for situations, things happening to us to actually get to the out of the comfort zone. But this is not natural things for people to do.
But life is going to sort it out for you, because like in Zen Buddhism, there are two ways of growing. That's the concept. One is when you are constantly looking for growth, and it's like gradual enlightenment. You're getting out of the comfort zone. And the other option is when life comes and it slaps you in the face and it's really painful. And it's going to come. It's not up to you. It is going to come. So the question is how ready you are when it comes. That's the real question.
So do you think we could have been better prepared for the pandemic situation?
I don't know if we could have been better prepared. But to me, the interesting thing is how we reacted. Because, when people are stressed or somebody catches them off guard or they are hungry or angry, then the real person comes out, not just on an individual, but even national level. Even if you look at EU, we are a big family, we love each other. And the virus came, borders are closed, have you got PP? And you? No, it's all mine, me. Immediately you could see what happened. It's easy to preach about fasting when you're full. But when you're hungry, what happens then? That's the real question. So I think the real personality came out often. But, there were a lot of horror stories, but also a lot of inspiring ones. And people realized they're capable of so much more than they thought so. But often we don't read about those things because that's not news, that's promotion. So we have to see the horror stories. And unfortunately, there are a lot of them. But there are probably equal amount of good ones as well, inspiring ones.
Absolutely. So I absolutely agree with you, because I guess what we could see is that there were a lot of people who came up with new ideas, new inventions. They had new ideas for their services, for their companies and so on. And there were others, who were really drowning. And this was, I guess, the thing you were mentioning with this mindset thing. So they weren't prepared as well, but they had a different mindset. Yeah,
exactly. And some people didn't even know about it until there was no other option. And often you do much more for other people than for yourself. So, if the survival of your family depends on you, then you're going to do everything. But maybe you kept postponing things, just like companies. We need online training. No, I don't think so. Remote work. No, that's like science fiction. And now they did it because they had to. People don't do anything until it hurts enough. That's human nature. We want to stay in the comfort zone. I want to do that as well. But I also know the price. So it's good to hang out there, but pop out sometimes and have a look around. And let's train, because it's coming anyway. So question is, are you ready or not? Or are you better prepared at least?
Okay, and how could we... So how would you say about communication? Because, for example, you say like what triggers you is what is outside our comfort zone. And it could be like, for me, I would understand that would be the way I could start to develop, or the beginning of the development. but what do we communicate and how do we communicate? Because sometimes when we are, like you just say, hungry, for example, one of the things is like not maybe being very nice or very talkative or something like that. So how would you say that the communication reacts or changes or develops in pandemic or stressful times in general?
Well, we talk about communication, and I would start with ourselves. How do you talk to yourself? Because often that's the real problem. Because if you are not okay with yourself, you are bitter, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're not going to be nice to the people. Often we talk about diversity in a way that we have to celebrate it, everything is kumbaya. Yes, that's the ultimate goal, but can we get to the point where you can tolerate people who disagree with you? Where you can hang out with people who think and behave differently? When you can disagree with them without wanting to convince them that you know the truth, you are above them, and then you can convert them. How about replacing that frustration and arrogance with curiosity? Let's find out why they think they're right. Let's see what they see, what we cannot, what they know we don't. If you are able to see the same situation from different perspectives, you can make a better decision. And that's exactly the definition of uncommon mindset. Because when you talk about common sense, you expect other people to come to the same conclusion as you, which is really naive at its best, but really nasty at its worst, because people are different. They have different experience, values, and beliefs. That gives them different perspectives. So if you can combine it, then diversity can lead to innovation. Otherwise, it turns into painful liability. But how can you be inclusive towards others if you cannot accept yourself? And most people are struggling then. And this is what the pandemic showed us. This is the trend that we noticed in our company, that people are struggling with getting along with themselves. When you go to work, then you get distracted because the boss is annoying and the colleagues, they're chatting constantly, and the clients, oh my God. So you're always reacting. But when people had to spend time alone at home, they had to hold themselves accountable. They had to manage their own time. They had to get along with their own family. Wow, that was difficult. Not because they are not smart. It's because they never had to do it. And we didn't learn about this at school. So they don't know how to do it. They didn't have the tools. And that's why I focus on that first, the mindset. Self-inclusion. That is step one. And if you are good at it, then you can go to the next level. How you communicate with others. But first, how do you talk to yourself? It's popular to talk about emotional intelligence. That, for example, you meditate and you breathe and all those things, which is fantastic. It's needed. But my question is, why do you have that negative emotion in the first place? Because before every single emotion, there was a thought, there was a narrative. You assigned a meaning to something. So if it was a negative one, you created a negative feeling. And then you can meditate again. How about going to the root cause of the problem and controlling your narrative? Why do you think that something is bad? So let's not use the toxic positivity, but we can focus on accurate thinking. And that would be the goal. It is normal that we have the negative bias. It kept us alive. We have to predict the future, and the safest option is if I predict the worst case scenario, which is fantastic, but that doesn't make you happy. Life is not as dangerous as it used to be when we used to be cavemen. It's different, but the hardware is the same. And the problem is that if you just repeat the negative stories, it triggers the same area in the brain, the amygdala. And your brain cannot tell the difference between something real or vividly imagined. So we are living constantly in stress. And when the stress goes up, cognitive reasoning goes down. Bad combination. Angry and stressed people are not smart. That's how we can save energy, because you don't have to be. You have to be strong and quick. Inclusive? No. Smart? No. But you control the narrative. And how do you do that? Because before every single emotion, you use some words and created some images in your head. And these are the two languages that the brain understands. And we are in charge of that. The brain is like Google. You find what you're looking for. But it's up to you. If you're looking for bad people around you, that everything is bad, you find it. If you find something better, that's what you find. The more value you place on something, the more you notice it. But again, you are in charge. You're not changing other people, but you can level up.
food for thought. But this is what we were doing on Uncommon Mindset Bootcamp, right?
Deep dive into the soul.
Yeah, changing the understanding of how we work and changing the view of our perception. It's really powerful experience. I think so. Every time we do the bootcamp, it's a different group of people, and the experience are just amplifying.
But 𝗂cy and 𝗶𝗵𝗂, you did a lot of trainings before the pandemic. You did a lot of trainings within the hard pandemic situations, and now on. Do you see some changes in the needs of the people before, within, and now?
If the question is about cultural intelligence and our topic, then yes, definitely. When the pandemic started, my prediction was that the country-specific approaches are going to struggle. And it turned out to be true. First of all, people didn't travel. Secondly, when they have to work online, so there's no peer pressure around you, and they don't have to conform to those norms, then the real personality comes out. So definitely that's a very different challenge. So that's why, for example, we created the Uncommon Mindset Bootcamp immediately, because I was thinking, how can we add more value to people? How can you give them what they need, not just what they want? And that's how we started. Because a lot of companies used to teach growth mindset and, big words. And then pandemic hit and they disappeared. That's not very credible. I thought, you know what, let's double down. You have to practice what you preach about. And it was a good idea. The company grew a lot, and we met a lot of amazing people. And we are creating the kind of ecosystem where we create synergy. And it is true. It's not a marketing slogan that we are smarter together. We prove it every single time. Alone, we are not enough. We are good, but together, so much better.
Absolutely. And even on our webinars, when we organize the Uncommon Sense and Usual Times webinars, the presentation is the first 30 minutes, and then there's another 30 minutes for people to ask questions, tell their experience, agree, disagree with us. Because again, this is the moment where we can learn. No one said that we know everything. This is about the sharing the knowledge and learning in the same time.
I have a question, because you said that there were many skills that we didn't learn in the school, and that is a topic that for me it's very interesting. In my dream, I would change all the school system so that the children would learn skills that they are going to need for their life, like taxes, for example, just doing taxes.
Inspiring.
Like, not all of them pragmatical. So if you would be able to teach something in a school, which subject would it be, and which skills would you teach children, like 10 to 12 teenagers? I don't want to teach teenagers because I don't know if that. Although probably they would profit a lot from that. So what could you teach children before teenage time?
It might sound a bit biased, but obviously Uncommon Mindset, because I do believe in it, that is the point. Because most of the opportunities, time and energy, are lost for two reasons. One is friction with people who think and behave differently, and the other one is friction with ourselves, self-sabotage. So we have to address both of them at the same time. Now, the problem with the kids is that when you grow up to age 5 or 7, then you accept your parents' subjective opinions as universal truth. They condition you. Doesn't mean that you agree with everything, but you learn how to conform to their norms. Otherwise, you don't get food. We are designed that way. You need that approval. Your survival depends on it. And then you go to school, and the different norms clash, and you don't know what is right, what is wrong. It's confusing. But if you don't know how the mindset works, how can you fix it? How can you upgrade it? For example, I know how to drive a car, but if it breaks down, then I would call somebody. I don't know how to fix it. And the mindset is like this. We don't learn about this. So to me, the big picture is that maybe not 10 or 12 years old children, but at least in high school, they would teach this, because it would be such a different world. Imagine if you didn't have to bully anyone to feel important, or you didn't have to hide to feel safe. That would be easier. Very different world.
Yeah, because at work we say, sorry.
Nothing?
Because at work, we call it that burnout, you know, when people are having the problem to adapting to the place, to a different culture. And at school, it's just left for themselves and the children, and they don't have the understanding and they don't have the knowledge. It shouldn't be like this.
The problem is that you cannot explain something you don't know about. So you can try to make sense of the world, but if you don't have the words, you don't understand yourself, then you can reflect on the symptoms, and then you can discuss it with people like you know, homophilic diversity, but that's not going to help you. And 95% of our actions are driven by values and beliefs we are not even aware of. So it doesn't really matter how much we reflect on it. We stay on the surface level, and we are not going to fix it there. That's why we have to focus on the blueprint, so we can go deeper. It's not about telling people who they are. It's about helping them find what they need and what they want, so they can find more resourceful ways of meeting their needs and reflecting values. That's all we want, nothing more than that.
Yeah, that's true. I had always the feeling that it was strongly dependent how parents talked about the pandemic situation, of what the children felt and how they behaved. Because when you were talking always in a bad and negative mood at home through the pandemic times, then the children were really afraid and they had too much negative thoughts. But when you were telling them, hey, it's a rough time, but we are facing it, and hey, perhaps we have to learn something new, see it as a chance, and so on, this made really a difference between the kids.
Yeah. Yes. Also, if you give them the tools to cope, telling people that it's going to be all right, you know, it feels good, but it doesn't make it true. And often that's the problem, that good intention and common sense can backfire. So if you think about the flow concept, you know, the feeling when you are involved in your work and then hours went by and you look up and then you don't even know what happened, but you were performing so hard. That happens when you have equal amount of challenge and support. That's the right combination. That's when you get into the flow. But often the parents overdo it. So they put too much pressure on the kids, so they never experience the flow because they are nervous and anxious. Or maybe it's the exact opposite. And they think, you know what, I had a hard life. You're going to have an amazing one. You don't have to go through what I went through. So they spoon feed them, not enough challenge. And again, they never experience the flow zone. Intention is good, but it backfires. That's why we have to find that balance. And that's why I keep talking about the accurate thinking. Let's be positive, yes, let's not scare them, but we can also make it realistic.
I liked it very much because yesterday I was talking, we were talking about privilege, and that actually we are in a privileged situation because we live in developed countries and we had a good medical system. So yeah, it was the pandemic, but we had all food, and so like we were safe somehow. So, but at the same time, I keep repeating, okay, but we should acknowledge that we were under a lot of emotional pressure, and that this uncertainty was like, it's killing slowly every possible, because we had to adapt, many of us will have to adapt and be flexible from one day to the other, and the emotional part of not having met the family for a very, very long time and not knowing what is going to happen when, and so on. So yeah, I think like uncertainty, it was for me at least the word for the pandemic for the first year. And it was the biggest trigger and issue and everything. And it's what helped me to develop, but what creates me a lot of anxiety even today, somehow related to the pandemic, at the same time as being privileged, because I knew, okay, I'm an insecure. So it's nice to hear that we can have both of them, and probably the balance. So how much do I put here, or
Everything is relative. So if you look at, for example, the UK, that's an amazing place, yet most of the people died here in Europe in the pandemic. So there's no guarantee for anything. It's all relative, and that's why I think we have to appreciate what we have. That's why I believe in blissful dissatisfaction, that you have to be happy about what you have, but it doesn't mean that is it. No, you know that you can and you should have more and you should work for it. But just be happy with what you have. But strive for more. To me, that's the right balance. Because if you overdo something, it becomes your weakness. If it's peace and you have too much peace, that's a problem as well. If you burn out, that's not good either. And if you're always just waiting for tomorrow, but it never comes, then that's difficult.
I think those are beautiful words to end with, like, be happy but strive for more, because I think that should be the challenge for this year. So
Yeah.
of the year, right?
Yeah, but I think we learned how to appreciate the smaller things as well. Quite a lot. I mean, even if I think about our last year, it wasn't easy at all. And things happened that, horrible things. But you have to focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
There's how much do you have to poison yourself, and how stressed do you have to be to change the past? That's, if you think about it, you can't. So why are you poisoning yourself? Instead of fighting what you don't want, let's focus on what you actually want, what you want to create. That makes much more sense. But if you don't know that it's an option, and you're just running on autopilot, and this is what you're used to, and you've never seen different ways of dealing with things, maybe that idea never comes up if you're not exposed to that. And I think we all did that a lot of times. You really don't want something. Yeah, but what do you want instead? I don't know, but I really don't want this. Fantastic. Got it.
But I think so. We all do that, because that's the easier thing. You're always thinking about stuff which you don't want.
Yeah.
It never hurt. You never amplified that something which you want. You have to learn to do it. Oh, I'm gonna have this job. Oh, I'm gonna do this thing. We always think, oh, I don't want that.
But it's also natural, because that's how we are wired, that you want to move away from pain and you want to move towards pleasure. That's it. That's the basic principle. And statistically, people are 3 or 4 times more likely to avoid pain than they are to move towards pleasure. It's primal. Because if a tiger is chasing you, then you're not going to stop to pick up money, because if the tiger catches you, then you're not going to spend the money. So it is normal that we want to avoid the pain. But motivation comes from clarity. And the problem is that in the absence of a clear vision, you are pulled back to the familiarity of the past. Again, that is normal. Having said that, it's up to you to work on that vision. And this is what leadership is about. Because if you can describe the future as vividly as other people can talk about the past, then they can stand behind you. Do you stand against something or for something? And a lot of leaders and politicians are against something. Great, but what's the option? What's the alternative? Do you have any? What can you offer? Silence. That's not enough. You can force people to do things, but when you have the vision, then people follow you because they want to be part of it and they want to contribute. But if you're just against something, yeah, you find a lot of angry people as well, of course. But we can see the result of that. So let's find out if there's a better way of doing things. That's the question we always ask. Not if you're right or if I'm right, but is there an even better way of doing things? And usually there is.
There is lots of reflection for today. This is the Sunday with the reflection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some challenges for us next week.
Yeah.
What I think is that there's no better way to end the Sunday, to end the week, and to begin the week with a lot of thought for next week. So
Absolutely.
a better way.
But as well with the 𝗶𝗺's book, what I would like to say is that there is lots of added value. I don't know if you want to explain it, 𝗶𝗺, what's coming with the book.
Well, the book is a hybrid book, meaning that information doesn't lead to transformation. That's not enough. It's not going to change your life. Not even a workshop or a coaching session. The secret is in the follow-up. And this is what I would like to facilitate. So, for example, the book comes with an interactive learning platform. So you read a chapter and you can also experience it. Because learning is experiential. And that's what we need. So it's like a 2.5 or 3 months journey, depending on how you do it. And then also after that, you can join our Facebook group and you can hang out with people who are on the same path, who are committed to growth and contribution. Because if you just go back to your habits, then nothing changed. It was a good book, colorful, that's it. And I've done it many times. Read a lot of books, and then can you just remember one concept? Not so much. So let's apply that knowledge. Let's create a blissfully challenging and psychologically safe environment where we can help each other, where we can grow. It's not about competing, it's about creating synergy. That's what we believe in, that's what we are working on. And that's why, for example, we don't ever sell a tool. We are looking for the right partners, and that's how you treat them. And there's a big difference. And there's a huge gap in the market in that way, a huge one.
I'm going to post a link to the book for anyone who is interested. And thank you so very much, Csaba, for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
And should we end?
We have to.
We have to in some point.
Cover now for 3 hours more, but I guess.
I think there's a game we have to watch too, right? And get ready.
Absolutely.
So what is going to happen?
Yes.
A great session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, guys, and have a happy Sunday, and see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.